Hallelujah and glory be, folks. We have some new information about the Ram TRX, and that's coming up in this video, including all the images we recently received. And this is something that is not exactly a test mule. This looks like the production-ready vehicle hidden under some wraps. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, these images bring to mind an important question. How does this vehicle compare against the current leader in this class, the Ford F-150 Raptor? Now, I know what you guys are saying. Well, no, they're totally different vehicles, and indeed they are, but the thing is that the TRX has to measure up to what the Raptor currently can do. And we're going to discuss that here, and we're showing you a whole bunch of really cool images. In this video, we're going to see what's changed from the earlier prototypes. We're going to look at it, once again, against the F-150 Raptor. We're going to see what the Ram Rebel needs to do to match the F-150 Raptor on looks, performance, and off-road capability. And we're going to include price as well. We saw the original Ram Rebel TRX concept at the 2016 Texas State Fair. Now, back then, it was the fourth generation Ram 1500 platform, which is known as the DS generation. That one had a 575 horsepower engine with a 6.2 liter Hemi V8 hooked up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It had 37-inch tires on 18-inch Mopar beadlock wheels, and it had a 2.5-inch King Racing shock lift with performance springs and, of course, better suspension travel. Now, this isn't the same truck. This is a completely different vehicle. Ram clearly had the F-150 Raptor in its sight, and obviously it still does. This is a vehicle that they want to beat in every way. So, how is it going to do it? Well, as many of you know, it's the worst kept secret on the planet. They're going to put a Hellcat Powertrain in this vehicle. How much of a powertrain? We don't know for sure, because it could be the 707 horsepower Hemi Hellcat engine that is currently available, but now they're making them 717 horsepower and higher and higher and higher. This could be an incredibly powerful engine. Now, let's first start off with the Ford F-150, because as a Raptor, it puts out 450 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you don't think that's enough, trust us, we have video footage of this thing drag racing on our track and being faster than a majority of the cars we drive. This thing is ridiculously powerful.
Look at that. 450 horsepower, 510 pound-feet of torque. Okay.
Yeah, you got a better jump that time.
He's still behind me.
So the idea of having even more power in an off-road pickup truck, well, that's pretty cool. Now, currently, they're using the 3.5 liter high output twin turbocharged EcoBoost V6. You can't find that in too many other Ford products. There are a couple, but for the most part, the Raptor is really the main guy that gets this. And it also includes a 10-speed automatic transmission and a lot more, and we'll get to that in a minute. The 6.2 liter V8 that they have inside the Challenger and the Charger Hellcat and the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk, among others, that engine's been around a little bit, so they already have a layout that they can use in this truck that sounds like it's fairly robust. That's really good news. You know what else is good news? The potential for putting out around 650 or more pound-feet of torque. That is impressive. Now, keep in mind that we don't know for sure exactly what this engine is, but we do know that around the back, you could see dual exhausts that are massive. Now, we've also had people see these vehicles testing in the desert, and they've heard these vehicles, and they sound throaty, mean, and a lot like a regular Hellcat does. They have 6 lug wheels, and they're wrapped in Goodyear Wrangler territory MTs. Obviously, we don't know if that's what the production models will have. It'd be very interesting to see what they do with the production version. Obviously, has a solid rear axle, independent front suspension. Spied photographers told us they could clearly hear this V8, by the way, and the supercharged whine. And once again, there's footage out there where you can clearly hear it as well. Here's an interesting thing. The Ford F-150 Raptor has 13.7-inch front brakes and 13.2-inch rear brakes. These are discs. And it's a pretty good chance that the Ram Rebel TRX would need even more stopping power, considering how much power it's putting out. And it's a pretty good bet that this will be a slightly heavier truck. Remember, Ford's body panels are all aluminum. They're going for a lightweight vehicle, and they have a small displacement by comparison V6 versus a large V8 and a lot of steel components. So I have a feeling that it'll be a little bit heavier and a lot more powerful, hence having larger brakes makes sense. Off-road capability. Now, the Ford F-150 Raptor currently uses the Fox 3.0 internal bypass shocks with live valve technology. This is really cool because you can actually set some of these components from inside the truck to make the ride what you want it to be. And it is specifically built for the Ford Raptor. It works really well. The Ram Rebel TRX. Upgraded with a Bilstein suspension, we will see remote reservoir shocks from the current Ram Rebel in this, most likely. It would make sense to see a beefed up version of those shocks in this TRX and of the springs they're currently using in the Rebel in the TRX. And this TRX does have a higher ride height than the standard Rebel. Now, it also looks like the fenders are blistered. If you look at them carefully, like the Ford Raptor, you can clearly see that those fenders tend to bow out a little bit. Now, it's not just for looks. The Raptor actually does it for functionality. Why? Because there's massive amounts of articulation with really big tires and wheels. So as it goes in, they need to have clearance in the fender well so it doesn't bang up against something. And I think that's exactly what they did with the Ram Rebel TRX. And yes, it looks really cool. So keep that in mind. The Ford F-150 Raptor specs. Now, it has a 146-inch wheelbase. Now, we're talking about the Super Crew model. It's the one that's most popular. It's the one I tend to see on the streets more often than the other version. It has 9.9 inches of ground clearance. It has an approach angle of 30.2 degrees, which is outstanding. Breakover angle of 21.8 degrees. Departure angle is 23 degrees. The question is, will the Ram Rebel TRX have those numbers or beat them? Now, look at these pictures and you tell me, does it look like it's a little bit higher than the Ford Raptor? Does it look like it has a little bit more clearance up front and behind than the Ford Raptor? It's really hard to say. They look really similar, but I would imagine that the way these types of things work, at least on paper, you're going to see Ram do everything they can to up the ante just by a little bit, even if it's by a half a degree. As long as they can do that, they can win the battle on paper. Let's continue. The Ford F-150 Raptor's off-road technology has a terrain management system and trail control. And it's basically like cruise control for rugged and off-road terrain. You can set it and change it as you're moving around and let the truck do a lot of the work. Question is, will the Ram Rebel TRX have that? That's a really good question. And the majority of the vehicles that they're building, Ram that is, they really do stick to a fairly simple off-road system by comparison. So will they up the ante? Well, here's the good news for those of you who want them to. They're also related to a company called Jeep, and Jeep has that type of technology. Is it possible that they could take Jeep technology and put it into this truck in order to make it competitive with the Ford Raptor in terms of apples to apples? It's entirely possible. So the Ford F-150's pricing, currently, it starts at $53,205, and you'll never find one for that cheap. Good luck finding a brand new one for that price. The Super Crew model is $56,190 base price. Most that are on sale at dealerships range from $60,000 to $70,000, and that is a lot more realistic. So the question is, will the Ram Rebel TRX be in that zone? Because we are talking about a vehicle that's basically going to have a Hellcat powertrain. And as you know, Hellcats are a lot more expensive than the regular versions of the vehicles that they are part of. So think about it that way. Now, the Challenger Hellcat, speaking of Hellcats, starts at $60,945, and the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk starts at $87,095. So will the TRX cost that much? Well, it needs to be competitive, so it may fall somewhere in the $60,000 range. Now that's a guesstimate. We're not 100% sure. Hell, we're not even 50% sure, but it makes sense. So they have to be directly competitive with the Ford Raptor where it sits right now. And remember, Ford isn't done with the Raptor by a long shot. It's entirely possible that they may modify their Raptor in the near future to be competitive with whatever the TRX turns out to be. However, at least for now, the TRX is proving to be elusive, cool, and something we are all looking forward to. I am terribly excited about it because it takes the whole segment up a notch. It forces Ford and Chevrolet, Toyota and Nissan, all of them, to up their game. And that is something worth looking forward to. Thank you so much for joining me for the Fast Lane Truck. This is Nathan. I'll see you guys next time.